before I lost my sight, I had no ambition or goal other than to be an All-American football player and then go into the NFL and make my living for the beloved Dallas Cowboys. And the coaches and scouts and people that monitored those sorts of things assured me I had the size and speed, and it was just a matter of time till I was making my living and creating a new life for myself in the NFL. And then 1 year before going to play another season of football, they make you get a physical every year before you go play. They want to make sure you're healthy before they take you out and try to kill you, is the reason they do that. So I go in for this physical, and it was taking a lot longer than it usually did, and I couldn't figure it out. And the doctor eventually called in another doctor, and he ran some tests. And eventually, a third doctor came in, and he shined a light in my eyes and did several other tests. And eventually, the three doctors took me down this long hall, and they sat me down at this table. And they said, "Jim, we're not sure why, and we're not sure when, but we do know that someday you're going to be totally blind, and there's nothing we can do about it. And your whole world just stops right there." I did a little research, and I found out there was, at that time and to this very day, there's never been a blind guy play for the Dallas Cowboys. So I realized, that part of my life had ended, and I had to decide, who am I and what am I going to do now? Well, when it first sunk in and I got home and realized I am really going to be a blind person, I went through all the understandable emotions. I was in shock and denial, and then I grieved, I got angry. I went through all of those emotions, and then I had to come up with some plan, and the only plan I could come up with to begin with involved moving into this little 9 by 12 foot room I had in the back of my house. And in my little room there, I gathered my radio and my telephone and my tape recorder. And that was my whole world. The thought of traveling millions of miles and speaking to millions of people, or running a television network with over 1,000 stations, or writing 30 books, or having 6 of them made into movies, or writing my weekly columns, or sitting here and talking to you guys. I mean, that would have seemed as foreign to me as going to the moon. And I sat in my little 9 by 12 foot self-imposed prison and just visualized the world going by and everything I was missing. Well, a turning point came for me. I was sitting in my little 9 by 12 foot room, and before losing my sight, that little room in the back of my house had been our television room. So sitting there in the dark, broken, scared, and depressed, I remembered that across the room from me there is this TV and VCR at the time, and my collection of classic movies. And one day I got to thinking about it, and out of just sheer boredom, I put on an old Humphrey Bogart movie called The Big Sleep. And I thought, I have seen this film so many times, I'll just be able to listen to it and follow along. And it worked for a little while, but then somebody shot somebody and the car sped away, and somebody screamed, and I got really frustrated. And I said the magic words. I said, somebody ought to do something about that. Now, the next time you hear yourself say somebody ought to do something about that, you just had a great idea. The whole world's praying for a great idea, and they trip over one about 3 times a week. The only thing you got to do to have a monumental great idea is go through your daily routine, wait for something bad to happen, and ask yourself, how could I have avoided that? The answer to that question is a great idea, and the only thing you got to do to have a great business is ask one more question. How can I help other people avoid that problem? The world will give you fame and fortune and everything you ever wanted in your life if you'll solve their problems. People tell me all the time, I want to make money. Hey, the only people that make money work at the federal mint. They print dollars. The rest of us have to earn money, and the only way you'll ever earn money is to solve other people's problems and serve them. And if you want more money, solve more problems for more people. It's not about you. After I had the idea, and I thought, if somebody would take an extra soundtrack in between the dialogue of the characters in these movies, and they would add that in there, television and movies would be accessible for 13 million blind and visually impaired Americans and millions more around the world. And I thought, what a great idea for somebody to do that. But no matter how great your idea is, until you're convinced you're somebody, nothing's going to happen. And I was pretty convinced I was nobody. But it was right then I went to my first, last, and only meeting of blind people. Somebody told me that there would be a support group of all blind people, and I got out of my little room and I went there. And I thought, they'll be able to give me some tricks or tips or how they deal with this. And I found out it was just a group of people that got together every week and talked about how bad it was to be blind. I'd already figured that out. I knew it was pretty bad to be blind. I had that part down. I was looking for some answers, not the problems. But as Providence had it, there was a young lady there, and she was at her first, last, and only meeting of blind people. She was partially sighted, I'm totally blind, and we were sitting next to each other. And she worked for a law firm here in our part of the country, and I don't know why I started sharing with her my frustration of trying to watch this Bogart film, and I got frustrated and couldn't follow along. And I said, you know, if somebody would add this soundtrack, it'd be accessible to all these people. And without even missing a beat, she said, well, when are we going to do that? And I said, do what? And by the way, who's we? What are you talking about? And she tapped into the last vestige of my Olympic weightlifting championship mentality. And she said, oh, I thought you were really serious. I didn't know you were just talking about it. And right then, at that moment, the Narrative Television Network was born. It was never more real. It was never more valid. It was never more concrete than that moment. Because as Victor Hugo told us all, nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time had come. And I realized that idea is mine, and if God above ever put me on earth for one purpose, it's that, and I'm going to do that or die trying. After I had the idea and Kathy and I started, we started right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which everyone knows is the entertainment capital of the universe. And we started in the basement of a condominium in downtown Tulsa. And to say we were clueless would have been kind. We had no idea what we were doing, and I realized I had to get some programming. And you know, when you are first starting out in the television business, I know it's tough to sell anything to anybody, but try calling up major TV studios, broadcast networks, and telling them you do TV for the blind. And you know, I got hung up on a lot, I got laughed at a lot. But eventually we got some programming, and then I had to buy some equipment. I knew nothing about it, but I started calling around to people that sold equipment to studios. And I said, look, we do TV for blind people, and I need some audio, video equipment. And finally, one guy called me back from Sony. My lawyer told me to quit saying their name, but gives him work, you know, if I keep calling it Sony, and then he can deal with all of their stuff. But he called me and said, Jim, look, here at Sony, we obviously make our money selling very expensive equipment to people that want to have studios, and we'd love to sell you some, but I talked to my management, and your stupid idea is obviously not going to work, and we'd hate to sell all this expensive equipment to a poor blind guy like you, and then your idea bails out on you, and you're stuck with Sony equipment. So what we want you to do, we'll loan you some equipment, and once you figure out your dumb idea doesn't work, call us, we'll come pick it up. So I figured, okay, we got some equipment, and Kathy and I began working with the equipment. Kathy had a great background in the law, so she ran the soundboard, and I had a Wall Street background, so I was the narrator. See, you got to know what you're doing. It's not like you can just have this big dream. You got to really know what you're doing. And we were clueless, but when your dream's big enough, the facts don't count. We produced those shows ourselves, just she and I. We were indeed the blind leading the blind, and we got on television, and less than 6 months later, we got on the big jet, flew to New York City, where the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences handed me an Emmy Award for engineering expertise that's expanded the scope of television. Not because I know anything about television or TV production, even to this day, but what I do know is when I have a dream inside of me, just like the one you have inside of you, I know I'm responsible for it, not idiot experts, dumb brother-in-laws, and other people that have never done anything telling me what I can and can't do. Your dream was given to you by God, and how dare we do anything but extend our best. And I've never seen anyone given an idea or a gift or a creative input that didn't have the capacity to achieve it. So the question is never can we, the question is always will we. And the future hangs in the balance. And if it was just one person out there, I wouldn't worry so much about it. But you know, if I hadn't pursued my dream, there would be millions of people that never got to enjoy TV or movies, and millions of kids that would have never gotten to go to a regular mainstream school. And who's gonna die out there if you don't pursue your passion? And if you can't live with that thought, you need to get up off your blessed assurance and go do something. You know, I always tell people that are trying to find their passion or find the faith to pursue their passion, you know, you don't have to figure it out how to do that. You have to get out of your own way. When we were little kids, you know, if I ask how many of you can sing, how many of you can dance, how many of you can draw a picture, how many of you can paint, every kid can. Give me a group of adults, when I ask how many of you can sing, nobody will move, not one hand goes up. You know, we come with the ability to know that we have the capacity to do everything. And then throughout the years, we are taught that you can't do this, you can't do that. And if you believe that crap, it's true. But if you'll go back to the way you were created, the way we were all made, assume everything's possible, a dream would never be put inside of you if you didn't have the capacity to achieve it, and realize the biggest goal, the biggest calling you ever had in your life is alive and well. And the only thing you got to do to activate it right now is say, yes, I'm going to do that. You may not know how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, who to do it with. You may not know anything about it, but you've got to realize that that dream, that goal, you have the wherewithal to do it. You know, don't get the how are you going to do it mixed up in the what are you going to do. The world belongs to the man or woman who will just say, yeah, I'm going to do that, and you take your first step and you don't worry about it. That's why the scriptures tell us, give us this day our daily bread. All you need is today. You know, don't sit there and wait for all the lights to be green before you leave the house. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, if you have a calling, start today. Do something. Learn something, read something, call somebody, get closer to it. And you'll find yourself taking the next step and the next, and it won't be that long till you'll be where you always wanted to be.